Expediency.
Pursuit of the course of action that brings the desired effect even if it is unjust or unprincipled.
They want what they want, fast and easy, with little consequences for the future based on their actions. They will do what they need to do to get what they want now, the easiest and fastest.
Failure is not an option when it comes to expediency. In fact, expediency is a tactic deployed specifically to avoid short-term failures. Albeit temporarily, of course, because you can't run from the consequences of your behavior forever. Well, at least people like you and me can't run, but for people like Bill Gates, they can actually buy their way out of facing consequences.
You're looking at video of Sandra Lindsay, an intensive care nurse receiving the first vaccination at Long Island Jewish Medical Center in New York.
The U.S. began vaccinating the population against the coronavirus in December of 2020. The goal is to get the COVID vaccine to every person in the U.S. who wants one, but survey data shows that nearly 40% of the U.S. population doesn't want it. Widespread mistrust might have something to do with the fact that if anything goes wrong with the vaccine, the drug makers that produce them aren't responsible. That means that companies like Pfizer and Moderna have total immunity against lawsuits related to injuries resulting from taking the COVID vaccines. Meanwhile, employers are legally allowed to require employees to get immunized against the virus. Ultimately, if we want any chance at returning to life as normal, mass vaccination is going to be critical. So how do you convince the public to take a vaccine made in record time using technology that's never before been licensed? And is anyone to blame if something goes wrong?
A quick and dirty solution. It's the easiest solution, but it's probably not the best term solution.
So, thanks to these real-world examples, I was able to determine that expediency is the main principle that the Marine spirits operate under in my show. It's the overarching theme of the subjective interactions between the good guys and the bad guys in the world of Star Marine. So then, the question became for me, what would a fight between the good guys and the bad guys even look like on my show? In other words, how do you fight the principle of expediency? Like, how do I even act that? What emotion is anti-expediency, or whatever? For the longest time, I just couldn't wrap my head around it. Until one day, when I was watching Joe Rogan.
Go way up. Way up. Hold on. Keep going. Wait a minute. Did they remove it? Oh my God. Did they remove it from my Instagram? Is that real? Holy shit, dude. That is crazy. Hold on. Let me check. Because that's kind of crazy. If they removed it from my Instagram, that's kind of crazy. Because this was I believe it was an NBC interview. Oh, they removed it. Wow.
Well, I want to ask you, you mentioned side effects. The side effects for the Moderna vaccine sound concerning. We looked. After the second dose, at least 80% of participants experienced a systemic side effect, ranging from severe chills to fevers. So, are these vaccines safe?
Well, the FDA, not being pressured, will look hard at that. The FDA is the gold standard of regulators, and their current guidance on this, if they stick with that, is very, very appropriate. And you know, the side effects were not super severe. That is, it didn't cause permanent health problems for the things there. Moderna did have to go with a fairly high dose, and so to get the antibodies. Some of the other vaccines are able to go with lower doses to get responses that are pretty high, including the J&J and the Pfizer. And so there's a lot of characteristics of these vaccines. It's great that we have multiple of them that are
Bill,
going out there. And yes, I think
you know the data better than I do. But the data showed that everybody with a high dose had a side effect.
Yeah, but some of that is not dramatic, where it's just super painful. But yes, we need to make sure there's not severe side effects. The FDA, I think, will do a good job of that, despite the pressure.
How many doses of the vaccine will we need?
Well, none of the vaccines at this point appear like they'll work with a single dose. That was the hope at the very beginning. Maybe one of them, particularly in the second generation, won't surprise us. We hope just two, although in the elderly, sometimes it takes more. And so making sure we have lots of elderly people in the trial will give us that data.
You've said some more than 7 billion doses is what we'll need.
Well, if what you're trying to do is block all the transmission, then you need to get 70-80% coverage on a global basis. So that it's unbelievably big numbers.
I mean, you're talking about a global vaccination program without a vaccine that hasn't been fully developed yet, and a massive scaling up of how to produce one or several vaccines. I mean, it's mind-boggling to think about this effort.
But the private companies have stepped up. The science has been advanced. The U.S. funds biological research more than any other country. We've stepped up to fund these vaccine manufacturers. The plants are being worked out now. In 2021, there's a good chance this can get done, and because this is about the billions that we need to spend to save trillions and avoid all those deaths.
Bill Gates is not used to people questioning him. He's not used to facing consequences for his actions. Now, I could go on and on for hours about his body language there, but if you run it back again, you'll notice how he gives himself away in glaringly obvious ways.
Fight or flight is nothing more than noting the physiological changes that occur when someone's under stress. Stress can indicate lying. For example, decrease in salivation. That'll make somebody swallow deeply.
Look, Gates is just used to being in control, and this interviewer, Nora O'Donnell, took the control out of his hands. That piece of video right there helped me realize that expediency thrives off of ignorance, and that truth is its enemy. As soon as you question it, it falls apart. And if you noticed, the reporter in the video wasn't even being aggressive with Gates. All she did was hold him accountable by confronting him with the truth. Gates was caught off guard because he's not used to facing consequences for his actions, and that's a weakness that many people in his position share. Doing this kind of research expanded my understanding of the worldview or philosophy my character in Star Marine is up against. Even though every Marine spirit that he banishes is different, they all share this kind of Machiavellian attitude.
Machiavelli was the first to understand a difficult truth. The greater good of political stability is worth whatever unsavory tactics are needed to attain it.
It began in healthy-looking pigs, months, perhaps years ago. A new coronavirus spread silently within herds. Gradually, farmers started getting sick. Infected people got a respiratory illness with symptoms ranging from mild flu-like signs to severe pneumonia. The sickest required intensive care. Many died. Experts agree unless it is quickly controlled, it could lead to a severe pandemic, an outbreak that circles the globe and affects people everywhere.
The mission of the Pandemic Emergency Board is to provide recommendations to deal with the major global challenges arising in response to an unfolding pandemic.
We have known about CAPS-like viruses in animals and people for decades, but have not been successful at developing a licensed vaccine. And sure, there are new technologies that may help, but it's going to be difficult. I am not optimistic about having a vaccine in time to be relevant during this pandemic.
Countries are reacting in different ways as to how best to manage the overwhelming amounts of and misinformation circulating over the internet. In some cases, limited internet shutdowns are being implemented to quell panic.
The outcome of the CAPS pandemic in Event 201 was catastrophic. 65 million people died in the first 18 months. The outbreak was small at first and initially seemed controllable, but then it started spreading in densely crowded and impoverished neighborhoods of megacities. From that point on, the spread of the disease was explosive. Within 6 months, cases were occurring in nearly every country. The global economy was in a free fall. The GDP down 11%. Stock markets around the world plummeted between 20 and 40% and headed into a downward cycle of fear and low expectation. Businesses were not borrowing, banks were not lending. Everyone was just hoping to hunker down and weather the storm. Economists say the economic turmoil caused by such a pandemic will last for years, perhaps a decade. The societal impacts, the loss of faith in government, the distrust of news, and the breakdown of social cohesion could last even longer. We have to ask, did this need to be so bad? Are there things we could have done in the 5 to 10 years leading up to the pandemic that would have lessened the catastrophic consequences? We believe the answer is yes. So, are we as a global community now finally ready to do the hard work needed to prepare for the next pandemic?
As you've just seen, in October 2019, Bill Gates was involved in Event 201, which simulated a worldwide coronavirus pandemic. Now this is where I fully came to realize and understand how the dark forces in my show, Star Marine, view the world. Remember the story of the boy who cried wolf? Well, what if I told you that that boy was only trying to help his community? That in his mind a wolf attack was gonna come eventually, and he was just concerned that his village wasn't prepared. He wasn't crying wolf for attention, he was crying wolf so that everyone in his village could be prepared when a real wolf attack really did happen. But now we all know how that story ended. Nobody believed him, and when the real wolf came, everybody died. So perhaps someone with a Machiavellian complex might take things one step further and actually create a fake wolf, so that when he does cry wolf, everybody will believe him, and the village can use the opportunity to actually prepare for the real wolf. I mean, if it wasn't for the current state of affairs we're all in, all of the health and medical infrastructure that has since been built would not exist. So maybe Gates has a point.
Today, the greatest risk of global catastrophe doesn't look like this. Instead, it looks like this. If anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus rather than a war. Not missiles, but microbes.
And that was my aha moment. That's when I started to realize how the concept of evil played out in this world and how it might look in the world of Star Marine. Because the Marine demons in my show, they think that they're helping humanity by giving them access to dark powers. They don't know that they're the bad guys. And that's what makes the show truly, truly terrifying. Because they could be capable of anything in the name of what they think is good.